Hey folks, Justin from Tackle Tactics. It is blowing 25 knots and raining outside, so we've got the camera and we're inside our Tackle Tactics HQ, and we're going to talk to you about a few different plastics that we use out on the water and also that people have been asking us about. So we've done a few store presentations and that over recent weeks, and there's one plastic that people keep asking me about. How am I fishing it? How am I rigging it? They're seeing fish caught on it, which is great. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a run through on the ZMan 2.5 inch TRD CrawZ and talk to you about how I rig it and how I fish it, because it has been a deadly little presentation for me on a stack of species. Flathead, bream, grunter, tailor, all sorts of things have eaten it across the flats and up into the mangroves, rock walls, pontoons, pretty much everywhere I like to fish. So the TRD CrawZ, it's a ZMan plastic, so it's a ElaZtech, it's 10 times tough, super soft and flexible plastic. And a great thing about that ElaZtech plastic is it's buoyant also. So that really is a benefit when you're talking about this little crayfish representation. Because it's a crayfish style plastic, it's got claws on it. And you can see these claws here that are separated from the body to give them movement. And also because of that buoyancy, when this is on the bottom, those claws are up and waving around, basically calling the fish to the lure. So gives it lots of movement, and it also gives it that natural realism. So the craw has little fins on the back here, and that gives it the illusion of an underhooked tail, like a cray that's trying to kick away, swimming away. It's also got these little legs, the realistic body, antennae, eyes, and also those claws that do make it look extremely realistic. In terms of fishing it, there's a few different ways I rig it and fish it. On a standard headlocks finesse jig head, so that's a fine wire hook on that jig head, I'll fish it on this standard jig head if I'm wanting to cover distance with it and fish it fairly quickly. So I cast it and I fish it on a twitchy, shaky sort of retrieve, bringing the lure back to me. And basically I'm using those claws in the water to kick and signify a fleeing prawn or shrimp or crayfish that's trying to get away from predatory species. So that twitchy retrieve across the flats works really well. I fish it over weed, I fish it over rubble, I fish it over sand flats, and I generally keep it up off the bottom and moving it with that twitchy sort of retrieve that keeps it active and keeps the fish interested in it. Some of the guys I know, they're fishing it and they're catching things, jack, cod, more structure-based species, and fish that are more likely to give your jig head a bit of stick as well. So they fish a Headlocks HD jig head on these little craws. And we're fishing around a size 1 to 1.0 hook. So I'm fishing the finesse, that fine wire, because any bream or flathead or grunter or anything that comes near there, I want them to be pinned in that hook, whereas other guys want the strength of that heavy duty hook in a size 1 or a 1.0. So that's one way to rig it. One way that's created a lot of interest is with a Nedlocks jig head. So this is what they call the Ned rig. So the Ned rig is a US finesse presentation that's created a lot of interest, and it's all hinged around this mushroom style jig head that's flat on the end that provides that really good stand-up presentation. And because the ZMan plastics are buoyant, again, it really gets that plastic standing up nice and straight. So when I'm retrieving the plastic, it's kicking along. As soon as I stop, it hinges back quickly and goes to the bottom and the claws stand up. So the reason I fish the Nedlocks style of rig, the Ned rig system, is when I want to fish the craw slower. On the standard head, I'm twitching it, I'm gliding it, I'm swimming it. On this head, I really want to utilize that stand-up presentation with those claws up in the air, so I'm fishing it a lot slower. So I'll hop it around rubble patches, I'll hop it around sand patches, and it has absolutely excelled in this configuration that I've got here, fishing yabby beds. So that's an orange-coloured Nedlocks on a greasy prawn-coloured TRD CrawZ. And that's a very good yabby representation around the yabby beds for bream and grunter and other species that are up there, trevally and things that are up there feeding on the yabbies on those yabby beds. So there you go. If you've got yabby beds in your area, give that a run because it's deadly. I predominantly fish the 1/10 ounce on a size 1, and that's a heavy hook, so it's a nice solid hook when you do catch those larger species up on those flats as well. And I've got some pretty big flathead eating these things. So when I fish the yabby beds, I'm matching the hatch, I'm fishing that orange head, and I'm fishing that greasy prawn profile. When I move to the weed beds and fishing those weedy pockets and weedy drains, I darken the colour of the plastic up a bit, and I'll go for something like a Drew's craw or the deal or those other colours that give a bit more silhouette in amongst the weed, much darker colour. If I look like this, I'm probably not going to live in the weed because fish are going to find me and eat me really quickly. I'm going to live on the sand. If I live in the weed and I look like that, I'm harder to see, so I'm going to be more realistic in that environment. So I fish a darker colour and I fish it on a darker Ned locks, like a green pumpkin or a black. And the great thing about it is that ability to twitch it and stall it almost and just drop it and just work it slowly is perfect for the weed flats, especially when you're picking those sandy pockets. So I'll throw it out over the weed, twitch it over the weed, and then I'll stall it, I'll stop and let it fall down the face of the weed and into the little weed pocket. And then I can give it a few little lifts or shakes and it hinges up, but then when I stop, it hinges back down quickly and falls straight back down. So it means that I can work that pocket really slowly and effectively. So even if the pocket's only 2 meters in size, in diameter, I can spend a bit of time with the plastic in there. Rather than giving it 2 hops and I'm through the pocket, I can shake it and drop it and work it slowly through that pocket. And that's been dynamite on the flathead, dynamite on the bream and that are feeding in the pocket on prawns and things that you know, they wander out of the weed like this does, boom, falls, comes out of the weed edge, boom, fish on. So there you go, that's on a standard jig head and also on our Ned locks. And the other way that I rig it, if I do find myself in really heavy weed, is I rig it weedless on a Snake Locks finesse jig head. So that's a number 2, you can also go a number 1. I like a number 2, nice small jig head that fits in there really well. And with that weedless rigging, there's no hook exposed to foul up on the weed that I'm fishing through. So I can hop it and twitch it and shake it and pause it and get all that movement that I want. Because the head is separated, and you can interchange those heads as well. Those hooks and heads just clip on and off. Because it's on a separate hinge, that plastic gets up and stands up nice and tall. Fish hits it, exposes the hook, hooked up and away you go. So that allows you to get that little plastic into the weed, into the weedy drains, into the weedy pockets without fouling up as easily and get those claws up in there and dancing to attract the predatory fish to the lure. Cool thing about it as well, awesome option for land-based anglers as well, where you're trying to fish off the shoreline and there's a layer of weed, you can get it out past the weed, fish the edge and fish it back through the weed effectively as well with less chance of fouling. So there you go. That's one of my favourite presentations that I've been using recently on a stack of different species. Hopefully that answers a few of your questions about rigging and fishing the TRD CrawZ 2.5 inch. Get out there, give them a crack.